We don't always have good news to talk about when we do these little videos together. Over the last year and a half, the news has actually been kind of awful. We are actually finally starting to get pretty consistent good news. I am, naturally by nature and personally speaking, an optimist. I kind of believe things will always work out for me. Big picture sense, though, I'm actually have always been inclined more to pessimism or at least a degree of caution. I like to approach things carefully. I believe in preparing for the worst, hoping for the best, worst case scenario contingencies, blah, blah, blah. Even with that mindset, I'm having a really hard time looking around right now and seeing bad news. I suppose it is possible that we will have new variants of COVID-19 that will completely break through our vaccines. It's possible. That's something we have to be prepared for. And if it happens, we're going to need to be ready to adjust for that. But it doesn't seem likely right now. Every variant we know of right now does seem to be slowed down by the vaccines we have. The vaccines are working. You can be kind of inclined to big picture pessimism like I am and still acknowledge the fact that these vaccines are proving really, really effective. This is going to be amazing news. What I also find interesting, though, is that there's going to be a lag time before Canadian officials are willing to admit it. What I mean by that is that even after things are getting back to normal here, there will be a degree of caution among Canadians because that's kind of the way we're wired. If you want to see a great example of this right now, watch the NHL playoffs. We're letting a few hundred, maybe a few thousand fully vaccinated healthcare workers into the arenas, which is great. American stadiums are packed. Now, probably some of that we could write off as the Americans being a little bit reckless. Some of it, though, is us being more conservative, obviously in the nonpartisan sense. That is not a terrible thing to be conservative. When you're up against an unknown threat, when you're up against a serious threat, being a little bit conservative is fine. It's probably actually healthy, all things considered. The Americans have packed baseball stadiums. They also have 600,000 dead. It's hard to call that a win. We are going to get to a point, though, I actually think we're reaching it already, when our politicians are going to need to start loosening up. We're only starting to see the tiniest glimmers of that. You know what? Maybe it's a little too soon. But in a few weeks, we will max out the number of people in this country that are going to take a first dose of the vaccine. We're going to pivot to a second dose effort. We're vaccinating at a rate of about 1% of the population a day. So 30 days after you make that pivot to the second dose strategy, not only do you have a very highly vaccinated percent of the population in terms of first dose, in 30 days, you're going to add a third of the population roughly that is double dosed. 30 days after that, you're going to have two-thirds of the population, roughly, that's double dosed. And that's going to be like late July. We are closer to being able to open than I think a lot of us are prepared to admit. Our governments have been slow at every step of this crisis. We have had more people die than needed to because we've been slow. There is an opportunity here for them to actually stick the landing, to get ahead of the good news and prepare for it, to provide useful guidance and actually reopen this country as our successful vaccination campaign permits it. Do not let inherent, slow, middling Canadian incrementalism delay the victory party that all of us have earned. We'll be able to reopen this country very, very soon. Let's be ready for it.